Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to Devlog number 52 for C-Beams, a spaceship action RPG that I've been working on with a small group of developers for a little over 2 years now. And today we have an important task ahead of us, the quest to find a publisher and decide if we want a publisher. This is an incredibly important step for indie devs, as your decision here can greatly affect the development of your game, the launch of your game, and even the revenue of your game. So you really have to make the right choice. Now, to get C-Beams ready for a publisher showcase, we had to get a new internal demo of the game finished, which involved cleaning up a ton of tech debt, doing several rounds of QA testing, and some optimization passes. Plus, we made some much needed in-game upgrades to things like our cargo ingest system and our FTL jump process. We also had to make the dreaded pitch deck. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you wishlist C-Beams on Steam. There's a link in the video description. There's also a link for our Discord channel if you want to follow development a little bit more closely. Now, let's start off today's devlog by talking about, well, one of the most important but also less romantic aspects of pitching your game to a publisher, and that is, well, starting off by just building a pitch deck. Now, I thought I might be able to make it through my career without ever having to build a pitch deck, but alas, it finally caught up with me. And here I am making the C-Beams pitch deck. The goal of a pitch deck is to be able to hand it to somebody and have them understand kind of the entire scope of what you want to do with your game in about 30 to 90 seconds. Now, naturally, I wasted no time getting to the fact that our game already, thanks to you guys, has a huge amount of wish lists on Steam. In fact, we are almost about to break 100,000 wish lists, which is awesome. This proves to a publisher that there's already interest in the game and that we have the capability of combining our sort of exposure with their marketing power to increase the amount of interest in the game. So that's kind of our superpower. Now, I'm not going to show you every slide of this pitch deck because some of it contains information like timelines and release dates, which I don't want in the public just yet. But I do want to show this slide here that I just think is really cool. On the left, we have my original concept that I was showing to Rich when I was trying to get him on board to help build this game with me, to explain what I wanted C-Beams to be. And on the right, we have the current vertical slice that is a screenshot from gameplay of what it looks like. And the fact that they look so similar, the camera angle, the sort of navering around the ships, the fact that you can scoop up cargo the way I wanted to do it, looks so similar. It shows that we did a good enough job planning and timelining and giving ourselves enough time to realize all the concepts that we wanted in this game. And I'm just really proud of that fact and that they kind of align so well. Now, the pitch deck is just one piece of the puzzle. Every publisher is going to want to see a playable build of your game, which often means sending them keys so that they can play it on their own. And getting any game demo to a state where it's robust enough to not break and actually teach players how to play it without you supervising or intervening is a much more challenging prospect than it might sound. In fact, it was much more challenging than I thought it was going to be, as we had shown the demo to people many times, but not without too much supervision or hand-holding. Once we had to send it off into the wind and trust that people would be able to progress the missions on their own, we had a lot of work to do. On the surface level, it's easy to understand that, yeah, we got to build a bunch of missions that function kind of as tutorials. They introduce people to the game and get you jumping around and collecting loot and getting paid and all that stuff. Makes sense on a surface level. Sure, I can quantify that work, but when you get somebody into the game and you start QA testing with them while not saying a word and watching them trip over every single process and getting stuck on things, you go, oh, right, I didn't think about what if somebody just didn't follow the prompts on screen, which is like 50% of the player base. Then what happens? We are having all the classic problems of a menu would pop up, they wouldn't hit the confirm button, then they would progress to the next stage of a sequence and the menu system would break. Or they would just ADHD skip through all the tutorial sequences, not read any of it, and then get frustrated that they didn't know what to do. And while some people might be inclined to say, well, that's a user error problem, I look at it as a developer problem. People are trained to skip through tons of menus and text and all that stuff. They don't have the attention span for it. So how can we make the game still playable, still learnable, if somebody is just going to skip all of that stuff? And so those are hard challenges to solve. I think we solved a lot of them for the demo. We at least got it to a point where I was confident enough that most people would be able to pick it up and get through all of the sequences and not get stuck. Many of the improvements and fixes we built involved stuff like building a context bar to make sure that interaction buttons would always show up when you could interact or do something, redesigning and fixing tons of menu focused bugs, changing the timing and logic of tutorial windows, forcing pauses at certain points to make sure that people had to read a message while other times letting them kind of auto disappear and be ignored, redesigning the mission status heads-up display to make it more intuitive and more instructional, updating and fixing lots of navring HUD icons so that if some people skip tons of stuff, there'd still be a little bit of a yellow marker to follow there. Also fixing all the points of friction. It turned out people really enjoyed exploring in our game and picking up every single piece of loot that they could find, and then getting very frustrated if they could not sell all of that loot for money back when they got to a station, which was kind of funny to me because we're focusing on high level stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll get all the economic stuff in later, but turned out we had to get that in sooner rather than later since everybody wants to sell their purple gear. Now you can of course send off these demos remotely to different publishers, which we have done and I do recommend, but also you can go to GDC, Game Developer Conference. This is the yearly convention held in San Francisco where they show off all the latest technology in gaming, but also in and around the event is where tons of publisher and indie developers meet up to pitch games and talk about the future. So I ended up pitching the game to several publishers and it went well. Hopefully I'll have more news on that front for next devlog. Now I want to give Rich a big shout out for just working so tirelessly to get this demo up and running and also getting a whole bunch of cool new features into the game that I've been really excited about. One of them is sort of the final design for how I want jump mechanics to work. Jumps were never cancelable previously, so once you locked into the jump sequence, it would finish no matter what, which looked weird when you hit an asteroid, started spinning, and then went into a jump. Now your jump can be canceled by colliding with an object. You basically have to hit all the jump parameters, but if you misalign your ship, it'll now break off the jump. And part of the point of this is to make it feel more natural, but also if you're in the middle of a combat situation and somebody's shooting you while you're trying to jump and those shots or colliding or whatever throws you off target, it can cancel your jump for you, making the jump process feel far more dynamic and less of a gamey locked-in feature. Now, while we're updating some of our mines in the game, we made sure that they were doing proper damage to asteroids and setting up that damage amount. So we can now trigger asteroid destruction using mine placement. And this will give us a lot more fun building blocks for creating interesting level situations where you could trigger a whole chain reaction of things that blows apart chunks of the level. And I am so excited to work with this. Now, a subtle but really important rework was an update we made to our cargo bays. So this update is twofold. One is the mechanics of it, where the cargo bay can now pull in cargo at different angles. This makes it a little bit more easy to use, but also it just feels a little more natural. Like you don't have to line up the cargo as precisely as you did before to pull it into the bay, and it pulls it at the right angle. The other change to this is that our cargo bays used to use volumetric lights that would actually light up the real volumetric fog in the level. Not only did this not look great, but it was also super non-performant. And so Uriah, a tech artist, friend of the channel, who's helped us build quite a few materials in the game already, helped us build a square volumetric light that is fake. So it's super performant, it looks better, and it's far more controllable. So tons of subtle little changes now that we're getting further into development that might not look quite as impactful and interesting, but are very important. So as you can see, we've been quite busy, and I always knew we were going to get to devlogs where we were talking a lot more about the logistics and the behind the scenes mechanics of building and publishing and all that fun stuff that goes on. It's not quite as exciting as building a new spaceship or a new big explosion or something like that, but it is possibly one of, if not the most important parts of building a game, is the back-end logistics and making sure you can actually publish and ship that game and get it seen by people. So I hope you guys enjoyed that sort of insight into what's going on. And hopefully for next devlog, I'll have some fun updates to share with you guys along those lines, and also detailing the production plans for the entire rest of the year and the rest of game development. It's a lot of work ahead of us, but I am very excited to get to it. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Once again, check out C-Beams on Steam. There's a wishlist link in the description. And if you want to see any of our other devlogs, check out the links right here. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. This is Level Cap signing off.